So with 2023 basically coming to an end for this year, and we're going into the new year of 2024, it's time to talk about what my predictions will be for War Thunder and what I think will happen within the game whenever it comes to major updates, whenever it comes to roadmaps, whenever it comes to just minor updates within the game, of what we might see whenever it comes to that. So whenever I made this video last year, basically I predicted more modern jets would come, bigger and bigger ships would come, and to be honest, War Thunder Mobile was a thing, so I do feel like I got a lot of the stuff correct whenever it comes to that. And it's kind of sad to actually say, because I kind of want to be surprised whenever it comes to just new and exciting stuff within War Thunder, but the sad thing and the sad reality about it is that it's kind of easy to predict at this point of what will be added or what will be changed whenever it comes to the game, because it's just going in a linear path at this point. Now, if we use the analogy that I think is actually kind of appropriate in this situation, War Thunder is kind of going up a roller coaster right now. We're very close to the peak, I do believe, of War Thunder whenever it comes to just adding vehicles, whenever it comes to just the content in general, and that's kind of a little bit of an issue because, well, where do they go from there? And that's kind of the question I want to have answered is, what's next? What's actually next for War Thunder whenever it comes to, finishing out the game? Because we kind of just don't know, and it's kind of weird to actually think about it in that way. But at the same time, is it going to start trending down, as in like people are going to stop being hyped about it? Probably not, because War Thunder is still a crazy and, cool game. But at the same time, there's not any more F-16s, there's not any more F-15s that can be added. It's really just a when is these vehicles going to come for different nations, not really if anymore. And that's always kind of a bad thing, because people are not going to be really surprised whenever there's an F-22 Raptor dev block, because at this point it's kind of just expected to be coming to the game at some point. So my first prediction for 2024 is probably the easiest one to actually predict, and that's going to be more, Fox 3 type missiles whenever it comes to War Thunder. We're going to have stuff like the Aim-120s come, as well as the R77 for Russia and all their equivalents. But at the same time, the thing about War Thunder is not many people even know that we already have these types of missiles in game, being the Aim-54s. So the Aim-54s on the F-14 can already be a fire and forget missile whenever it comes to air, but at the same time, the Aim-120s are just going to introduce that to more planes, and then also it should just be better in general. The only question that I really have about these types of munitions is that they're kind of standoff munitions, and the way that you can use them is basically just shoot all of them off and they start going towards enemies, and then you can basically just go back to your airfield, rearm, and keep doing that over and over. It means the engagement distances of these types of aircraft will be extremely long, and at the same time, is that a good thing? And it's honestly just one of those things that's going to have to be, tested out, and maybe it's not, and maybe it should be something that could be nerfed in the future, because I don't exactly prefer, different types of things, especially like vehicles that don't have access to these types of weapon systems, of them just getting owned by them because someone can just shoot them off, fly over their airfield where basically they can't die, and they just shoot these missiles off, and it's just like, oh, okay, so I'm going to be randomly getting targeted by these missiles in a second, let me just go to the ground so they can't track me, and they just hit the ground, and then that person just lands and does it again. Is it going to be incredibly annoying? Yes, there's already F-14 people who do it right now, but at the same time, the thing about the Aim-54s is that they're pretty easy to evade, especially if you know how to evade them and just don't climb. If War Thunder, basically top tier ARB has just turned into don't climb Thunder because of all the semi-actives, and as well as just, AMRAAMs coming at you. Well, not AMRAAMs yet, but, Aim-54s coming at you, and, you just kind of get through that, barrage of the first strikes of, the stuff. But the thing about AMRAAMs is that they're completely autonomous once they, lose the radar lock. They can still go towards the target, and you don't really have to control them. So yeah, honestly, that's going to be the first update of the year. It's probably going to be a little bit of a hype update just because, it's more aircraft stuff. But at the same time, is it going to be something that's fun? I don't know. We'll definitely have to see whenever it comes to that major update. So to get the boring out of the way real quick, let's go over War Thunder Mobile, and as well just go over War Thunder Naval, because they're basically the same thing at this point. So War Thunder Mobile, if you didn't know, came out in 2023. You're able to play it now on your mobile device. You can also use it to log in to War Thunder and also get your dailies, which is also pretty cool. But at the same time, the thing about War Thunder Mobile is that it has naval vehicles in it already that are probably going to come to War Thunder at some point. So they have submarines, they have stuff like the Iowa, they have stuff like the Yamato, the King George, a couple more, Russian ships that were never created. But at the same time, it's kind of just showing what naval is going to be. And it's kind of one of those things kind of like de-hyped naval, because basically you just go to War Thunder Mobile, look at all of the tech tree vehicles that they already have in that game, and then you're just like, oh, you already have the model ready for this. This is just going to come to War Thunder at some point. And that's basically what's happened. So for this year, my predictions of naval is that they're going to expand it a lot more, because the one thing that I've always heard about naval is people want bigger and bigger ships. They want Iowas in the game, they want Yamatos, they want the King George, they want submarines. And whenever you add all this stuff to the game, there's still one problem to it. You still have to grind it out. And guess what? You still have to go through tech trees of vehicles you do not want to play unless you just want to GE it or you want to use premiums. And even with the naval premiums, the grind for naval is still extremely long. So if you've not already started the grind for naval to get up to the battleship era and as well as the Yamato era of the tech trees, it's still going to take you a while to actually get there whenever they do come to game, which is always going to be one of those things. I believe people who have always just said, oh, I'll play naval whenever there's just bigger ships, have always just been like, oh, I'm never really going to play naval. It's just my excuse of what I want them to add. And maybe if they added it as an event vehicle or as a premium, I'd play like 2 games in it and probably never touch it again. So honestly, naval has still some of the most expansion to the game. We kind of already know what the expansion is going to be within the naval portion of the game. And honestly, it's not really that much fun to speculate about naval because you just go to War Thunder Mobile and there it all is. The only thing that we can kind of just say maybe will come is just more modern ships whenever it comes to those types of vehicles, but at the same time, is going to be fun to actually shoot stuff like anti-ship missiles at battleships that only have guns to shoot back. And that will be definitely the question that has to be answered whenever it comes to naval, and maybe we'll see something like that in the year of 2025. But as for naval, it's basically just going to expand into bigger and bigger ships. We'll just have more meta stuff, maybe more VR compression within naval, because as we already know now, there's not enough people playing the game mode in general. But maybe with the bigger ships coming, we might see a little bit of a bigger player base for the mode in general. So in the next portion of this video, let's talk about ground forces. So ground forces are in an interesting place, I do believe, in War Thunder, because I feel the same as I do of last year of 2023, of basically in 2024, there's not much left to add for any of the nations whenever it comes to ground forces. As you know, many nations have just been put up to rank 8 for some reason, like France, Japan, Italy, and as well as, Israel, and they did not get a new rank 8 tank because, well, basically they don't have any to be added to the game. The question about it is what do they add for the major nations? Because the major nations in War Thunder are basically the only nations that can field a new tank whenever it comes to rank 8. And for America, they're solid. You're still going to have the SEP V3. For Russia, you have the T-14 Armada, which can maybe come to the game. For Germany, you have the Leopard 2A7 Plus, which is just basically the same thing, but you do get a 50 cal on top or something. There's not really much to add. We have the Challenger 3, for Christ's sake. It's not even a vehicle that's like out. It's still a prototype vehicle, and it's already been added to War Thunder because they've basically just been scrapping the barrel whenever it comes to adding these top tier tanks and trying to flesh out rank 8 for some reason. It's just insanity to me whenever it comes to that. And also just a little bit of a thing in this video. I've been thinking about making a video about the Abrams because I kind of feel like I have a different opinion whenever it comes to that, like, the whole DU insert thing. The thing that I'm kind of feeling about it is like this. So Gaijin basically just wants to add vehicles because every time they add a vehicle, there's a chance of someone GEing it. There's a chance of someone just buying, FPE and parts because, maybe they just want to have that, early on. There's people that, buy modules and buy the top round for it and all that sort of stuff. And adding just the same vehicle over and over to flesh out a lineup, let's just say that there's a SEP V2, which doesn't have DU inserts, which was definitely a thing. But then they can also in the future just add the SEP V2, which had the DU insert. They could add the, prototype of 5 that actually had it into the game, which I pretty much expect for them to kind of do whenever it comes to that. The thing about it is that we're kind of just, well, at least to me, I'm kind of just bored of top tier because every vehicle feels the same. And, there's not really a huge difference between them. They all either have 120s, 105s, or 125. That's basically it. There's nothing that's really unique about any of these vehicles. And then you just pick the poison, which is just winning the most, which currently is Sweden and as well as Germany. So put those two nations together, get you a teammate, and basically you just run over the enemy team because those two nations are kind of performing very well right now. So as we've got through the major areas of the game, being naval, air forces, and as well as the ground, it's time to talk about what I think could come in the roadmap of 2024. And just so you know, this video is being made before the roadmap officially comes out. I do know it's coming out pretty soon. Whenever it comes to the 2024, they're definitely going over your guys' feedback as well as just CC feedback to see what they should add. And honestly, I feel like there's some really good suggestions whenever it comes to the roadmap of 2024. There's a lot of things I feel like are just like either minor inconveniences and then just stuff that could be fixed in like a couple of updates, and it would just make the game extremely better. But here's my heavy hitters that I feel like should be fixed within 2024, and basically that goes around, rank 7. So rank 7 right now, whenever it comes to aircraft as well as it comes to ground, they're in a really rough spot. Some of them are in, BR decompression, hellhole right now, especially stuff like the F4 Phantoms, stuff like the F4E is just in a BR that's just extremely bad for it. The F4EJ Kai, all of these vehicles are just really bad. They're kind of like in the same scenario that a lot of vehicles in the past were, like 9.0, where they basically just had to face vehicles. They're just extremely, competitive compared to them. They do still have, really good weaponry. They still have, Aim-7s, they still have Sparrows, they still have all this sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, they're still having to face, F-16s, F-15s. And with the new type of weaponry systems coming in the future, being AMRAAMs, they're just going to be even more, kind of bullied because of that. And especially if there's vehicles that are kind of left behind, like the F-16A or something like that, where they still will see Phantoms, it's still going to be kind of bad to actually see that sort of thing within the game. So hopefully BR decompression, especially whenever it comes to Air Forces, is kind of taken into effect. I would really love it, and I know it's not ever going to happen, of just where you get these vehicles that have extreme, over G missiles. They're just completely pulled out of the area of where there's no vehicles with flares, because it's so bad, just playing like stuff like the Kafir with the, Aim-9J equivalent and all that sort of stuff, and you just see an F4C and you shoot the F4C with, a missile it cannot evade and it can't do anything against because it doesn't have flares, and the only thing that it can do is bring in a rocket pod and hopefully shoot off the rocket pod, and the missile kind of just goes towards the rockets. It's just very bad game design, because it's really bad whenever there's not a counter to something that does have counters, but you just have to have the correct vehicle to counter it. Like, if you're going to have that sort of thing, it's just so bad to play against. And it's so funny too, because you're just like, oh, I have these two missiles that are AIM-9Js. They're basically going to do nothing against anything that has flares, and people that flare these missiles off are just going to get easy flares, right? But as soon as you see a vehicle that does not have flares, like a Mirage Milan, the F4C, vehicles that like they're easy kills, Harrier GR1s, oh god, it's just a field day for these missiles, and it's kind of just sad to see. But at the same time, hopefully we can get these, vehicles in a very decent place. I don't really want them to be overpowered or anything. Just get them into a decent place of where they can actually work whenever it comes to the game of War Thunder. So one of the biggest things I want to see within ground forces is rank 7 getting a stock APFSDS. So if you didn't know, within the last major update of air superiority, when rank 8 came to the game, they all got stock APFSDS, even though they're the tip of the top vehicles that kind of really don't need it whenever it comes to, actually grinding it out. Now, am I saying it's a bad thing that they have it? No, but I still think that it needs to be applied to rank 7, because rank 7 still has battle ratings of 11.3, and the top BR right now is 11.7, where these 11.3 vehicles still have stock heat FS, and they have to go against vehicles that have just a bunch of ERA protection. And Gaijin themselves even said that the reason that they're giving rank 8 stock APFSDS is because of all the ERA protection many of these vehicles have, of just where you can't pin them with heat FS because they just have too much, ERA protection. Now, if they're going to say that for rank 8, definitely it should be applied to rank 7, and I really hope to see that whenever it comes to War Thunder of 2024. So I don't feel like that you can't talk about a roadmap for War Thunder without talking about the grind in general within the game. And to be honest, within the last year of War Thunder, basically the grind for me has been pretty alright. Like, I don't feel like that it's like a nuisance or anything. The only areas of the game that I still think is kind of a problem is definitely helicopters, because once again, they're kind of hard to just spade out in general. But now with the ability to grind them out whenever it comes to using ground forces, it's really cool to actually see that sort of thing happen. Now, the thing about it is, and I feel like there's, still issues with the grind, especially whenever it comes to naval. Naval is one of those areas that I feel like it's kind of still slow to get, a grind done with. But Air Forces easily can get a vehicle ground out in like a day. That's a top tier vehicle, end of the line vehicle. Like, it's pretty easy to do now for, Air Forces. You get a ton of RP whenever it comes to that. Ground Forces, it still takes a little bit, but at the same time, I feel like Ground Forces takes a little bit, because in War Thunder, Ground Forces is kind of seen as kind of the main game mode. And if you're just able to get everything so quickly, you don't have enough time to spade out the vehicles that you're playing. And then also, you kind of just progress through the game too quickly into a point to where you're just running out of like Silver Lions. And it's kind of like, it has to be a yin and a yang. And for me, at least, even though Ground Forces takes just a tad bit longer, it's still doable, and it's still way better than it used to be, especially with stuff like skill bonuses and all that sort of stuff whenever it comes to War Thunder. Now, one thing that I would really like to see them added to the the game is the ability to grind up blue water vehicles with your naval coastal trees. Because for right now, as soon as you max out a coastal tree, there's basically nothing else you can do with it. You can't, grind out, blue water stuff. And they can basically just do the same thing as they did with helicopters, where you just press a button, and instead of grinding out coastal vehicles, you grind out blue water vehicles. And it feels like a way that you can do, the progression for both tech trees by playing the vehicles that you want. For me, at least, I don't prefer to play vehicles like, battleships and heavy cruisers and light cruisers. I feel like that gameplay is kind of boring, but at the same time, I have, my coastal trees that are kind of fun to play because they're really just gunboats. They go around the map and they're able to, just gun people out. Is it still unfair whenever you see like a destroyer in your little frigate? Yes, but at the same time, your little PT boats can do a lot of work and a lot of score, and that's personally how I've been doing the War Thunder Winter event, is just going around in a little coastal boat and using the Gatling gun on the back and basically just gutting everybody out. I'll show some clips of it because it's extremely funny, but at the same time, I really wish there was a slider for that where I'm just able to research blue water ships with coastal, and that would just be a really good, kind of thing whenever it comes to War Thunder. So to end this video off, because it's already got really long, definitely if you have some sort of, suggestions that you'd like to see in War Thunder, put them in a comment. But I kind of want to end this video off talking about what I think of War Thunder for 2024. And honestly, I feel like it's the continuation time. And what I mean by that is that they're continuating the, updates that they usually do, but we definitely have to see how they kind of do it, because there's going to come a point, and I don't know when that point's going to come, of just where there's not any more vehicles that people care about being added to the game, and it's going to slow down the amount of stuff people actually want to see. Is there more F-15s going to come? Yes, there's going to be the F-15E, F-15C, all these vehicles are going to come to the game, but the issue about them is people are still going to be interested in them, and the answer to that is definitely yes. But what about after those vehicles are added? Will people still find interest in War Thunder and find the game exciting to keep coming back to, even if they already have all the stuff within the game that they already wanted? And that's the question that really has to be answered, is what kind of updates will we see post 2024, or, even towards the end of the year of 2024 of, the content, because there's only so much that can be added to the game. And I feel like this year is definitely the year that Gaijin needs to come up with something new, something exciting to keep people playing the game for, a plus another 10 years whenever it comes to the game itself. And definitely we have to see what sort of things they have cooking up, because, definitely if I'm feeling like this, and I've been playing the game for so long, Gaijin should have been feeling like this about a year ago, of just where does the game go from here, and kind of leading the audience into, kind of like predictions, kind of just, expecting stuff will come, would definitely be the way to go for the game. So yeah, I'm still really positive about the game. I still feel like War Thunder has a really bright future ahead of it, but at the same time, you do have to realize that sometimes things do come to an end, and sometimes you do have to think about that, because if you don't, then you just get hit by it just randomly, and it's always really bad. So yeah, War Thunder for 2024, still going to be playing it, still going to be making videos on it, but I hope everyone has a wonderful New Year's, and I will see you guys in the new year with a new War Thunder video.